Michael Jordan shows up to watch a game, but a bold critic challenges his legacy. His comeback is sharp, unforgettable, legendary. The arena pulsed with energy, the roar of the crowd ebbing and flowing with every possession. The game was already in motion, sneakers squeaking against the polished hardwood, coaches barking orders from the sidelines. But outside of the game itself, no one noticed the presence of the man who once ruled this very stage. Michael Jordan walked in with effortless cool, his stride unhurried, yet commanding. A crisp black suit, open-collared shirt, and a Rolex that gleamed under the lights. Subtle, but unmistakably Michael. He wasn't here to make an entrance. He was here for the game. But first, he wanted a snack. He veered toward a concession stand tucked near the VIP entrance, where a vendor, mid-yawn, barely glanced up as he wiped his hands on his apron. "Welcome to the United Center. What can I get you?" Jordan scanned the menu, lips pressing together in thought. "Got any nachos?" The vendor sighed, nodding toward a tray of prepped orders. "Yeah, but we're out of the good cheese. Got that stadium pump cheese instead." Jordan smirked. "Man, y'all still serving that? Thought they'd have upgraded by now." The vendor chuckled. "You'd think, but hey, it's tradition." Jordan glanced over at the tray again, then shrugged. "All right, I'll take one." The vendor reached for the nachos, then paused, finally looking up. His face froze. Jordan could see the exact moment recognition hit. The man blinked once, twice, his hands hovering over the tray like his brain was trying to play catch-up. "Wait a second, you're," he stammered. Jordan raised an eyebrow. "I'm just a guy trying to get some nachos, man." The vendor let out a disbelieving laugh, fumbling for the tray as his hands suddenly forgot how to function. "Damn. Wow. Okay. Here you go, Mr. Jordan." Jordan reached into his pocket, pulling out his wallet, but the vendor shook his head. "Nah, no way. On the house." Jordan smirked, sliding a 20 onto the counter anyway. Consider it a tip. As he grabbed the tray and turned away, he walked up to the entrance. The security team led him through a private entrance, weaving past event staff and VIP guests. A few sharp-eyed attendees froze mid-conversation, their voices trailing off as they did a double-take. But Jordan didn't break stride. He barely acknowledged the quiet ripples he left in his wake. He wasn't here for attention. He was here for the game. His courtside seat, the best in the house, waited for him. And for a moment, as he lowered himself into it, the world carried on, oblivious. The game played on. Fans remained fixated on the court, locked into the battle unfolding before them. Then, the shift happened. A few feet away, a young fan glanced over, and his breath caught in his throat. His eyes widened, disbelief washing over his face. He turned to his friend, nudging him hard. "Yo, that's Michael Jordan." His friend, skeptical at first, leaned in to look. The moment his gaze landed on Jordan, his posture stiffened, his expression morphing from curiosity to pure shock. Then, the murmurs began. Like a spark in dry grass, the whispers spread. Row by row, fans nudged each other, craning their necks, eyes darting toward the courtside seat. A low hum of excitement crackled in the air. And then, someone said it out loud. "MJ's in the building." It wasn't a scream, not yet, but it was enough. Enough to make heads snap around. Enough for people to start pointing, standing, pulling out their phones. Then came the first chant. "MJ, MJ, MJ." It started as a low rumble, but in seconds, it grew. Louder, stronger, unstoppable. The rhythm spread through the arena like wildfire, consuming the audience, until thousands of voices merged into one. The players on the court hesitated, momentarily distracted by the unexpected roar. A few turned their heads, and then they saw him. Michael Jordan, seated courtside, as if he belonged to the game itself. The crowd's energy crackled through the air, but Jordan barely reacted. Just a small nod of acknowledgement, a flicker of a smirk. He'd been here before. He knew the weight of his presence. A few seats over, someone leaned in. "Man, you know you just shut the whole game down, right?" Jordan turned his head slightly, already knowing who it was. Drake. Dressed in a custom varsity jacket, the rapper grinned, shaking his head as he took in the moment. "You really can't go anywhere without the world stopping," Drake said, voice low, keeping it casual. Jordan exhaled, eyes on the court. Didn't come for all that. Just wanted to watch a game. Drake chuckled. Yeah, good luck with that. Jordan finally glanced at him, an eyebrow raised. You should talk. You're courtside at every other game, talking like you're the 12th man on the bench. Drake laughed, leaning back in his seat. Hey, what can I say? I live for this. He nodded toward the court. You see the kid in blue, number 11? He's got your fadeaway in his bag. Jordan's gaze followed. He watched the young player for a beat, tracking his movement, the way he read the defense. Was all he said. Drake smirked. Cold. No reaction? Jordan leaned back, arms crossed. I'll react when he actually makes the shot. Drake grinned, shaking his head. Man, I swear you're impossible. Jordan didn't argue. He just waited. A second later, number 11 caught the ball, turned, and released, shoulders squared, wrist flick precise. The ball soared through the air. Clank, off the rim. Jordan let the silence hang between them before speaking. See? Drake burst out laughing. Yo, you're a menace. Jordan just smirked, eyes back on the game. Jake Sullivan had been waiting for something like this all night. He'd been covering the league for years, seen his fair share of star-studded courtside appearances. But this was different. Michael Jordan was in the building, and the entire energy of the arena had shifted the second people realized it. Jake watched the crowd buzz with restless excitement, the murmurs rippling through the stands like a wave. The players had taken notice. The cameras were trying to get a clean shot, and at that moment, he saw his opportunity. The game went into a timeout. Players shuffled toward the benches, coaches barking instructions. The noise dipped just enough. Jake moved. Mic in hand, he weaved past a few staff members, flashing his press pass when necessary. He didn't charge in. No, this had to be done smoothly. He approached from the side, respectful but confident. Michael. Jordan's gaze flicked up, cool and unreadable. Jake smiled, keeping it light. Mind if I steal a second? A pause. Then Jordan gave the smallest nod. An invitation, but just barely. Jake crouched slightly to be at his level, making sure the mic wasn't too close, keeping the whole thing casual. First off, welcome back to the arena, Jake started, grinning. I think it's safe to say the crowd is a little happy to see you. Jordan exhaled through his nose, a small, knowing smirk. They're here for the game. I'm just another spectator. Drake let out a short laugh from beside him. Yeah, all right, Mike. That's why they've been chanting your name for the last 5 minutes. Jake chuckled, glancing at Drake before returning his attention to Jordan. Well, you've still got it. Can't go anywhere without turning heads. Jordan shrugged, leaning back in his seat. I tried to sit in the nosebleeds. They wouldn't let me. Drake cracked up. Even Jake, who had been trying to keep things professional, couldn't help but grin. Smooth, effortless. But Jake wasn't about to let the moment slip away. This was his shot. So tell me, Mike. He leaned in slightly, dropping his voice just enough to feel like they were sharing something off the record when they both knew they weren't. You've seen the way the game has evolved since your time. A lot of debates go around. Who's the greatest? Who dominates the court today? What's your take? The words barely left his mouth before the murmurs started. A few fans in the stands perked up, catching the shift in conversation. That's a good question. Bet he dodges it? Another chipped in. Nah, Jordan don't run from that kind of thing. Another declared. The court's giant screens weren't on him yet, but the growing hum of curiosity made it clear where the attention was. Though Jordan still hadn't given an answer, Jake waited with his mic steady. Jake knew this was the kind of question that could send headlines into a frenzy, but that wasn't why he asked. He had covered the NBA for years, listened to analysts pick apart stats, watched players pay their respects, or in some cases, challenge the throne outright. He had seen young stars attempt to carve their own legacies while standing in the GOAT's shadow. But the one person who rarely entertained the noise? Michael Jordan himself. Jake had seen it happen before, a single question turning into a wildfire. And this one? This was the question. Before Jordan could even react, a few of the players resting courtside chimed in. Come on, Mike, we all know it's Bron now. One of them called out, grinning. Another one leaned back, arms crossed. Man, don't let him off easy. MJ, you still got a dog in this fight or what? Laughter rippled through the sideline. Even the refs, who were supposed to be focused on the game, stole a glance. Drake found it comical, shaking his head as he sat back. Yo, they really trying to pull you into this, huh? Jordan? He just laughed, a slow, knowing chuckle, like a man who had heard it all before. Because he had. Jake watched him closely, mic still in hand. This was what he had wanted. Not just the question, not just the hype. He wanted to see if, just for a moment, the man behind the myth would let something slip. Would he brush it off with a joke? Would he lean into the debate? Would he finally stake his claim, once and for all? And more than anything, Jake wanted to see how Jordan felt about it. Because a lot had changed. The game had changed. And yet, here Jordan was, still undeniably the center of every discussion about greatness. Even the players, the ones who grew up watching him, the ones who were now making history themselves, weren't questioning his place in the conversation. They were waiting for him to claim it. Jake kept his mic steady, watching the flicker of thought cross Jordan's face. This was the moment. Would he answer? Or would he, like always, leave the world guessing? At his right, Jake saw a figure approach, and he recognized him instantly. His stomach tensed, his grip tightening slightly on the mic. Oh, great. Here we go, he thought. Stephen Marks, a name that carried weight in sports media, but not the good kind. He wasn't just a critic, he was the critic. The guy who made a career out of tearing down legends, poking at their legacies, and making sure the spotlight stayed on him while doing it. He had gone after everyone at some point. LeBron, Kobe, Shaq, even rookies who hadn't played a full season yet. No one was safe. And now, from the look in his eyes, Michael Jordan was his next target. Jake's face changed the second he saw Stefan weaving through the courtside crowd, heading straight for them like a heat-seeking missile. He turned slightly toward Jordan, lowering his voice. Just a heads up, you've got company. Jordan, still relaxed, arched a brow. Company? Jake didn't get to explain. Stefan arrived, and unlike Jake, he didn't ease in with polite small talk. Michael Jordan, the man, the myth, but still the greatest? Let's talk about that. The tone was sharp, loud enough to draw a few eyes, just like he intended to. Jake exhaled. Here we go. Jake felt it, the subtle but undeniable shift in the air. It started as murmurs, casual side jabs from scattered voices in the stands. But then, like a slow-building storm, it gathered momentum. The murmurs became full-fledged declarations. The laughter turned into knowing chuckles, the kind that carried a weight of challenge. LeBron's the GOAT now, MJ, a voice from the very back echoed. Steph changed the game more than you did, another joined in. More names followed, tossed out like fuel to an already growing fire. Kobe, Kareem, Shaq. Even Giannis and Durant found their way into the mix. Jake recognized them, critics and their fans. Jake's grip on the mic tightened slightly as he turned his gaze toward Jordan. Stefan, standing just a step closer now, had a satisfied gleam in his eyes. This was exactly what he wanted. Jordan, however, remained still. He didn't flinch, didn't react, not at first. His face was unreadable, the same expression he had in the final seconds of a close game. Calculating, deciding, letting the noise build before shutting it down. Drake, sitting just beside him, exhaled a short laugh and leaned in slightly. Damn, Mike, they really trying you out here. Jake caught the barely there smirk at the corner of Jordan's mouth. Then, Stephen took his chance. Come on, Mike, you hear them. The game's changed. Players are different. Maybe it's time to admit someone's taken your spot. And with that, silence once again settled over the court. Every eye was on Jordan now. Jake could only wonder, was Stefan about to get his headline? Or was Michael Jordan about to remind the world exactly who he was? Drake, who had been lounging casually, sat up a little straighter. Even the fans, the ones who had been shouting names and theories a moment ago, hushed waiting. Because this wasn't just a question anymore. This was a challenge. Jake glanced at Jordan, who hadn't so much as twitched. Nothing in his body language had changed. His posture was still easy, still composed. But Jake had interviewed enough people, had studied enough reactions, to recognize the shift beneath the surface. The way I see it, Stefan continued, tone casual, but eyes sharp, every era has its greats, but things move on. Legends step aside. Maybe this is just one of those times. Jake almost felt bad for him, Because Michael Jordan didn't just step aside. It had turned to one of those rare, fleeting instances where history catches up to a person, stares them in the face, and dares them to respond. Jake could only wonder, was Stephen about to get his headline? Or was Michael Jordan about to remind the world exactly who he was? Jordan had been here before, he thought silently. 1,000 times, in 1,000 different ways. Maybe not in this exact setting, sitting courtside, surrounded by fans, cameras in his face, but the feeling? The challenge? That was familiar. Predictable. Expected. It always came back around, didn't it? People loved to debate greatness, loved to pick apart legacies like they were puzzle pieces that could be rearranged to fit new narratives. And Jordan had watched it happen, watched the conversation shift over the years. First it was Kobe, then LeBron, now Steph, tomorrow, someone else. The game moved forward. It always did. But the thing about greatness, the kind of greatness that built dynasties, that rewrote record books, that burned itself into history, was that it didn't fade. It didn't have an expiration date, and he sure as hell didn't need to defend it. Still, Jordan wasn't annoyed. He wasn't angry. If anything, he was entertained. Because Stefan thought this was a fight. Drake could feel the weight in the air, thick, charged, like the moment before a storm. And he wasn't about to let this turn into some messy, viral spectacle. He leaned forward, flashing that signature easygoing smile, and clapped a hand on Jordan's shoulder. "Aye, man," he said, turning towards Stefan. "We really doing this here? Right now? This man came to watch a game, not to settle debates that'll never end." A few people in the audience chuckled, the tension breaking just a little. Even Jake smirked, sensing Drake's attempt to redirect the moment. Drake wasn't stupid. He knew what Stefan was after, and he wasn't about to let him get it that easy. "Come on, bro," Drake continued, still keeping it light. "You really gonna ask Michael Jordan if he's still the GOAT? That's like asking if the sky's still blue." More murmurs rippled through the crowd. A few fans clapped. One even shouted, "Tell him, Drizzy!" Drake grinned and leaned back, thinking that was enough to end it. But Stephen? He wasn't done. He gave a dry chuckle, shaking his head. "See, that's exactly the problem. Y'all want to act like time doesn't move, like nothing changes. But let's be real." He looked back at Jordan now, locking eyes. "Mike, if you laced up today, do you really think you could keep up? The game's different, faster, more skilled. You still think you could dominate these guys?" The energy in the arena shifted again. This time, the murmurs weren't playful. They were expectant. For a second, there was silence, until a voice from the stands cut through the tension. "That's mad disrespectful, man." All heads turned as a fan, a guy in his late 20s wearing a vintage Bulls jersey, shook his head in disbelief. "You talk like Jordan wouldn't still cook half the league today." His friend sitting beside him laughed and nudged his arm. "Half? Bro, he'd own the court. Man's the reason half these guys even picked up a ball." More murmurs rippled through the crowd, this time in Jordan's favor. A few others chimed in. "Y'all act like the dude didn't drop 40 at 40. He changed the whole mentality of the game. Stats don't measure that." "You really gonna sit here and pretend he wouldn't adjust? He adjusted back then. He was the adjustment." Stefan exhaled through his nose, clearly unimpressed, but he let the audience chatter play out. He wanted a response from Jordan, not random fans. Jake, watching it all unfold, realized something. This wasn't just a debate anymore. It was a moment. And like every moment in basketball history that mattered, Jordan was at the center of it. Now, it was just a question of what he'd say next. Jordan leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, the smirk never leaving his face. He let the tension sit just a little longer, making sure everyone was paying attention, especially Stephen. Then, in that smooth, unshaken voice, he said, "If my era's over, why are we still talking about me?" A ripple of reaction surged through the crowd, gasps, murmurs, even a few scattered claps. Jordan didn't stop there. "They say the game's different now. Faster, more skilled." He gave a slow nod as if considering it. And maybe it is. But greatness? His gaze locked on Stefan, sharp as ever. "That doesn't change." Stefan opened his mouth, but Jordan wasn't done. "People like to rewrite history," he continued, voice steady. "But history doesn't need defending. It speaks for itself." Then he leaned back, settled into his seat, and delivered the final blow. "Let me know when they stop wearing my shoes." The arena erupted. Laughter, cheers. A few people stood straight up to applaud. Even some of the players on the bench were grinning, shaking their heads. Jake turned to Stefan, barely hiding his own smirk. "Well, you got your answer." Stefan exhaled sharply, jaw tight. He knew he wasn't getting anything else out of Jordan. Not tonight. With nothing left to say, he gave a curt nod and walked off, disappearing into the crowd. Drake, still laughing, nudged Jordan. "Man, you didn't have to do him like that." Jordan shrugged. "He asked for it." Jake chuckled, finally easing back in his seat. "Legendary. That one's going to be all over the internet in 5 minutes." Jordan didn't care. The game was starting back up, and that's all he was here for. With a casual flick of his wrist, he slid his tray of tacos toward Drake. "You like one of these?" Drake grinned, taking one without hesitation. And just like that, Michael Jordan turned his attention back to the court, completely unbothered, unshaken, and exactly as legendary as he'd always been.